And while we waiting for everyone to take the seats, and I will also welcome our panel members to the podium, and we should be then ready to start. A warm welcome to one and all. I think it's a good thing that the protocols were observed in the morning. You know, when you give an engineer a chance to say something, we always look for solutions. We provide solutions. We sometimes lose the formalities and the human part of it. And I'm happy that all the protocols were observed this morning, and we're proceeding as our MC opened this morning, and what a wonderful and powerful message that we've received from all speakers this morning. I'm sure you'll agree with me that there's a lot before us as a community, as qualified members in the energy hydrogen space, and it was quite interesting to also take some of the notes from Prof and some of also the discussions that took place from our from Babu Mxolisi Kaunda, the mayor, and also to understand what the other countries are busy with, you know, outside us. It was also interesting to hear some of the information coming from the embassy office. I'm sure you'll agree with me that there's a lot that has been done by eThekwini, and I think as the theme indicates here is eThekwini energy transformation. We've also enjoyed to see the bigger picture of what this hydrogen means to the entire country as South Africa, and also the demand, which is the local demand and the international demand that Prof highlighted in his presentation. And we all know that, as indicated also in part of the mayor's introduction, that eThekwini has already established a regional hydrogen strategy, and to respond to this strategic requirement, which is dealing with the energy crisis, but not only that, and there's also the strategic fuel reform within the energy sector that will benefit the economy of not only KZN, but of the entire country. So the hydrogen discussion, the energy renewable discussion, is one of the key reasons why we now want to get into the nuts and bolts. We want to get to the how. How are we going to do this in a more feasible, and how are we going to then make sure that everyone who is affected benefits from this solution. And one other thing that we can highlight is that ports, we have ports of Durban, ports of Richards Bay, and we also have the Cato Ridge dry port. These are some of the key strategic clusters that will form part of this development of the gas and the hydrogen economy. And we'll see this as the day unpacks, and some of these discussions are taking place during the day, and we'll see how all this will come into the bigger picture and the bigger map that we've enjoyed as presented this morning. So we all are advocates of this hydrogen change and the new economy that we are discussing this, in these 2 days. And again, a warm welcome to KZN, and it's a warm city, but you also have warm citizens. I think one thing that's beautiful with KZN, members in KZN are forever smiling, and they are smiling for a good reason, because it's a warm and a friendly city. And one other thing also, we forever have tourists. Maybe that's why there's no gap. It's like every day it's a tourist holiday. Yes, that's why we're forever smiling. And I'm sure you will enjoy this beautiful city of KZN as we proceed with the day, and obviously safe journey also as we'll be exiting later this afternoon. So the session theme, what is it that we'll also be covering in this discussion? We have the panel members, and I'll give them a chance to do a quick introduction so that we know who is in the room, as part of mass support. But we surely want to get an understanding of the practical context of this hydrogen economy and some of the potential in the KZN province. And also, we want to see how some of the identified hubs, I've just touched on that, in the eThekwini and Richards Bay ports, and what will that mean to our economy. We'll also want to touch on some of the investment and job creation aspects and hydrogen economy in this region and in other areas which is also outside our boundaries, as to how others will benefit from this very same discussion. And some of the future pipeline projects that eThekwini and Richards Bay are driving, and that would fit into the supply chain and an infrastructure investment. So these are some of the discussions that we'll be going through, and our panel members, I'm sure you had questions, and also the question from some of the discussions this morning, and question from some of the strategies that we've presented and you've seen. We have our panel members to take us through. I'm not going to attempt and go back to some of the discussions, just to give us an overview of the strategy. I think Prof. Ramogopa has done a good job, and also the Honorable Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda has given us an overview of what is expected from eThekwini side in terms of the strategy. So I think now we've got a number of questions that we may need to vent out or ask, or maybe some of the ideas that we'd like to suggest, or solutions that we'd like to suggest to the members. As I've indicated, we now are answering the question, how? And are we going to do this? And the why, it's already answered. That's why we have the strategy. But how are we going to do this? We've also noted from the presentation in the morning that 23 million USD dollars has been indicated as part of the growth that will come as part of this initiative. And we really want to be part of the members that will advocate this change. Maybe I don't think I'll do any justice if I can attempt and introduce my panel members. I will give an opportunity to each member to do a quick introduction and maybe just give us an overview of where we fit into the bigger picture, so that if we get any questions from the audience, we can then know who are our main members here in the podium. We'll start with Mr. Hlalele. Maybe a quick introduction from your side. Thank you. We'll ask our AV. I don't know if
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's better. That works. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Like the chair have said, protocol observed, so I don't want to make any mistakes and get chased out of eThekwini, like Dr. Ramogopa. So I'm very pleased and glad to be here. My name is Damani Hlalele. I'm a director at Arab. I head up the advisory and renewable team, but we are a global firm of consulting. We have been honored to have actually supported the eThekwini and the region to develop the hydrogen strategy. And I just wanted to maybe to give some history very quickly of how that came about. We have been doing some work and supporting eThekwini around climate change issues, but there was an opportunity for a grant funding through the UK Pact that was made available on renewable energy opportunities. And through the relationship with the Energy Office, in particular SBU, we made possible for the grant funding to be available. And that grant funding was really, we came up with an idea of creating a hydrogen strategy for eThekwini. So So that's where we are today, and the municipality became the beneficiary of that grant, similar to what Dr. Moramokopa was saying around there's grant funding that is available from ESA and other stakeholders around the world. So our firm like ourselves are able to identify all those possible grant fundings that can be available to unlock opportunities in South Africa. So that's one of the things that we do.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Hlalele, and I think you deserve a round of applause there. Thank you. And we'll go to our next member, I think is Mr. Mazibuko. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good mid-morning, everybody, and thank you, Project Director or Program Director. My name is Busiso Mazibuko. I'm the Executive Chairman of the Cato Ridge Dry Port Development Hub, located here in KZN, which is 64 kilometers of radius from the Durban Harbour. I'm mentioning the radius deliberately because we are working very, very close in partnership and collaboration with eThekwini Municipality, Transnet, various divisions within Transnet, TPT, to mention a few, TNPA and TFR. And also about this project, we firmly believe that is one of the biggest Babmeya that is ever going to be ever taken in the province, because it's a catalytic and a seamless approach that we have adopted, which will deal with the congestion in the harbour, and we should also deal with the congestion that we see on the roads. Hence, we also have the truck stop component as part of the solutions to make and ensure that the economic of this province, in particular development, it's going to greatly improve once it's fully operational and implemented. We are also proud to mention that this project also reports to the Office of Dr. Rama in the province, in the light of the presidency or Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Committee. During COVID, this project was also elevated as one of the national importance in the province and the country generally. I'm happy that Dr. Rama and Babmeya is here. That people would say, no, it's something unrealistic. We are there, we are implementing phase 1A now of the project. Phase 1A of the project is part of the full phase 1 of the project, which is 6.2 billion. That is phase 1. But the entire project is 32 billion South African rands, not dollars.
Thank you.
So that's what we are bringing
Thank you.
in the province. And we are really, really encouraged by the collaboration that exists, though still not yet enough. But Mayor, we still expect an MOU with your city.
Thank you, Mr.
It has
Mazibuko.
taken us 2 years. But
Thank you.
we'll deliberate on that. But what I would like to say is that Cato Ridge Dry Port has arrived.
Thank you,
Cato
Mr.
Ridge Dry
Mazibuko.
Port has arrived.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I must be careful now. If I give Mr. Mazibuko another chance, I think he will be addressing some of the memos and the responses that he's. So if there's any member in the room who's owing him some response, I must make sure that I don't give you an opportunity to say something because he's looking for his answers. Thank you, Mr. Mazibuko. And I think we also have our panel member, Mr. Shange, maybe a quick one from your side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, panel member. A warm greetings to the worship here, the mayor. A special welcome and greetings to Professor Ramakopa, all dignitaries, captains of industry, ladies and gentlemen, greetings and good day. My name is Muzi Shange, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer of the Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone. We are located about 1.5 hours north of KwaZulu-Natal, And we are located in a strategic port, one of the 2 ports of KZN, and one that lends itself as a deep sea water port, and also strategically located to be able to drive energy security. It has been identified in terms of the National Development Plan. It finds expression in the provincial growth and development strategies. It's one of those ports that are so located in driving the energy security. That's why we are here. And we will be sharing more information and details around some of the exciting projects, especially around the gas and the gas infrastructure linkages to the city of Durban. Thank you.
Thanks, thank you, Mr. Shange, and a warm welcome to you too. You're now embarrassing me because I was running away from, observing the protocols, and now, as the chair, I didn't do that, but I think I've bent on what the opening remarks and my previous MC did, and thank you for that quick introduction from your side as well. And let's now go to Ms. Mahoha. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Morning, colleagues and everyone. My name is Amanda Mahoha, as Program Director has alluded. I'm the specialist in renewable energy for Transnet National Port Authority, overseeing in terms of deploying all the renewable projects for the 8 ports, which now includes KZN in terms of Richards Bay and Durban. We had projects already going out for RFI. We are busy trying to release our RFP, which will be out soon. Have a look out on that. And then why we're here, I think we cannot differentiate green hydrogen and leave renewable energy out of it. As a specialist, we do have a contribution in that matter. And then also, as we have 2 ports that are strategically positioned to assist in terms of enabling the green hydrogen, especially for eThekwini. So as us, we are key role players to ensure that strategically we are both aligned and we leverage from each other strength in order to achieve that objective. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Mieza. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Good morning to eThekwini Municipality team. Morning to the rest of the delegates. My name is Linda Mieza. I'm also with Transnet National Port, TNPA, with my colleague Amanda. We are based in TNPA head office in Port Elizabeth. My background, I'm a chemical engineer. Pretty much worked mostly on refining. I am in the capacity of an oil and gas sector specialist in TNPA, looking after all the oil and gas initiatives. And I think Amanda has explained the role on TNPA as a stakeholder, as an enabler to the energy, and TNPA views energy as a strategic growth opportunity. And thanks a lot.
Thank you. I'm also now comfortable to do a quick introduction. It's not easy to introduce yourself. I'm Shepherd Nkosi, maybe for those that don't know me, and I'm the current and exiting SAIE chairperson, the South African Institute of Electrical Engineering, KZN, and I was the chairperson for the past 2 years, and I'm also the national head for Transnet, looking after the energy and sustainability portfolio. So that's the person in front of you who's the program director for now. And thank you for this introduction, and I was careful. I don't want to say many things. Then more you say, more questions will be coming to your side. I'm worried about you, Mr. Mazibu. I think you'll be answering all the questions. So a quick introduction will save you. But now is the time for the question, and that's why I wanted to keep mine short so that I don't get all the questions. And I'm sure you are now asking yourselves a number of questions. We've heard about the eThekwini Regional Hydrogen Strategy, But now the question is, how do we position KZN as the leading hydrogen ecosystem hub? How is that possible? Maybe we've heard from our members with a quick introduction, the ports of Richards Bay, the port of Durban, and the dry port. How is all that, interlinked? How is this going to drive the hydrogen economy? There's also the levelized costs of energy. I think part of the presentation from Prof. Ramo Hoja. How are we going to make sure that there's improvement there? Because there's a lot that, as we've seen, this energy hydrogen will introduce. Any question from the audience? I think we have panel members ready to respond to us, and I'm sure maybe we'll be assisted with roving mics. We can also recommend something if we think there's also other opportunities that are not covered, or maybe if there's something not clear in the strategy, the hydrogen strategy, and how does it benefit the whole country of KZN. There's a hand from a gentleman there. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mtutuzi Mtembu. Just a bit of clarity on the hydrogen strategy. Prof. Ramukhupa mentioned that since the demand is not quite developed yet in the country, so the likely offtake would be exports. I see there's at least 3 people that can talk to this question there. So when we're talking the ports, particularly Richards Bay, are we looking to gear that for hydrogen export? And what sort of investments are in the pipeline or are being considered for that? I'm not talking import, because I would assume if we're talking importing LNG, then it wouldn't necessarily be green hydrogen, because it would go via the Fischer-Tropsch route. So I'm thinking perhaps it would be more for export. Are we considering it that way? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mtembu. I think for now we've got a question from, maybe we can take another question and we can give our audience, our panel members a chance to answer. There's one hand right at the back. Thank you. I think the mic is coming closer to you. Thanks, Mr. Mtembu.
How's it, everybody? Aside from the hype around green hydrogen, nobody's yet worked out why we are going to use our scarce potable water to sell to anybody. And we've heard all these stories about hydrogen, and you electrolyze with green energy and coal and whatever, but the fuel for green hydrogen is water. And I'm not sure if anybody knows that, but we're a water scarce country. So why are we selling it to anybody?
Thank you. And these are the 2 questions. I think let's take these 2, and we can then maybe open for more. I'm sure Prof. Is excited to answer the second question, but we're not going to go to Prof. And maybe to our audience members, the hydrogen strategy, I think that's the one that Ubaba Mtembu is worried about. And if we can maybe come into respond, or maybe either of the 2, it doesn't matter which one we start with, but we've got those 2 questions. And then the issue of water scarcity and why, and what's this hype about the green hydrogen when we have an issue of water supply. So these are the 2 questions, and maybe the strategy one, if there's any response there. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Hlalen.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Those are very good questions. I just wanted maybe to give some context before I get straight to the questions in play, because I'm not sure whether everybody have actually seen the eThekwini hydrogen strategy. which I think the energy office should be making those available so that there's a clear understanding what is trying to cover. But I just to give a brief context so that some of the questions that will be coming through is understood. So one of the reasons why the hydrogen strategy was identified as an opportunity by our firm and also eThekwini was we do a lot of renewables in South Africa, but we saw, like what Dr. Mokhupa was saying, is there was nothing in KZN and eThekwini. So part of our influence is really around to find those opportunities where we can help rather than going to work on some of the regions where the opportunities are already going. So that's the reason why that was done. The other reason was we saw the passion from the energy office, especially Zbu. He was really, really passionate to get this thing done. The leadership of the municipality was trying to, they had the energy and the passion to make it happen. So I just wanted to give that context. So when the strategy was developed, we wanted to achieve a couple of things. Like Dr. Mokhupa was saying, there's no opportunities in this part of the world. There was already a national strategy around clean hydrogen, and that is really a foundation of where we started, because if you've got a national agenda, it's very easier to piggyback on that and do other strategies in response to that. So, because if the national leadership, the provincial and local government, there's some alignment in terms of leadership and direction, there's a high possibility for success. So for us, that was important. The other important hook was the municipality had a fully integrated resource plan. I'm sure it has been had. There's conversation around nuclear, there's conversation around gas, there's conversation around all sources of regeneration. And hydrogen became as one of those technologies within that entire technology solution. So that was encouraging because it's probably the few municipalities in the country that has actually got a fully integrated plan like that. And what we also wanted to achieve within the strategy was to build awareness of the hydrogen economy. Because if you are building an economy from start, you want a number of people to be able to support it, not just because it's a new idea when you're starting from scratch. So I think that part of the strategy, even these conversations today, is actually to educate and provide people awareness, but also to create opportunity for people to invest on some of these technologies. The rest of the world does not have answers on some of this, but I think as entrepreneurs and people, we need to see the opportunity and try and seize it. The other thing that we needed to answer within the strategy was really around, is there demand and supply for this? Do you export? Do you look at locally? Are there opportunities that you could actually address in the short term and creating smaller pilots to be able to get momentum and to start rather than a big bang, because big bang projects from experience, they take a long time, they never go ahead. So you have to start small, learn from the experience from the rest of the world, and then you continue. And then the other thing that we wanted to do was to be able to assess what are the potential locations for the production and storage of hydrogen. So I think the mayor has articulated that Durban, Richards Bay, and Kettridge were those three hubs, and there are a number of reasons for that. And, um, and so one of the things that I'll come to the questions. So the strategy is there, and it was answering all of these complicated questions. So why eThekwini or KZN is really, really important, because we have the two biggest ports, which is Durban and Richards Bay. So whether you're looking for export or doing something else, you already got the infrastructure in place. You don't have to spend huge amounts of money to go and build a new port. So you already got the infrastructure that you can leverage from. So that's a huge positive for this region, because all of this stuff will require huge investment, but if you can leverage from already the stuff that you've got, that's a huge positive. The other positive is our colleagues from Transnet are here. The Port of Durban, there is plans to convert that to a container hub. By converting that into a container hub, there's going to be a lot of trucks, and together with rail, towards Interland. There's opportunity for hydrogen to be able to convert some of those trucks within the N3 into hydrogen. Like Dr. Ramakhupa said, for heavy lorry trucks, you cannot use batteries because of the traction and all of that. So hydrogen is probably the most sensible thing to do. The other opportunities, the rest of the world is moving towards aviation in terms of converting engines. There's a lot of research around how engines could be possibility for hydrogen, the shipping lines, all of those things. Most of the shipping lines, the big 400 Panamax, they will be docking down in Durban. So if there will be a need to refuel some of those capacities, some of those going back. So there's already advantages that this region has, and I think it's an opportunity for us to take the advantage of that.
Very true.
Yeah.
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 No, thanks. Thank you so much, Mr. Mahlalela. I think you've highlighted a number of competitive advantages, and I agree with you that there's a lot. I think also as part of the member that was part of the development of the strategy, I think you can share a lot behind. And I see there's a hand also from Mr. Mieza. You can come in, sir.
Thank you very much, Program Director. And thanks to the panel member for the explanation. Right? I think there was a point raised as well about export and the TNPA's readiness. As I previously mentioned earlier on, TNPA views the energy sector as a growth opportunity. So we are aligned, and we are interested and in full support of the eThekwini hydrogen strategy. And as per the normal processes we normally follow, like for all other energy commodities like LPG, natural gas, we go out on RFP, we prepare, and we look at the proposed industry designs and the requirements on the hydrogen space. So this will be definitely one of the priorities, and TNPA is also working on the hydrogen strategy as well through Transnet Group. TNPA is obviously an operational division of Transnet Group, but we've received a first draft of this, so we're trying to also position ourselves with not just only the Durban and the Richards Bay initiatives. I think Professor also did beam up, I think, about 9 projects as well, some of which affect TNPA in the Kuha with Hive, and also the Northern Cape developments. So in terms of infrastructure, yes, we are making strides as well to make sure that we are aligned, it seems. Thanks.
Yeah. And also the eThekwini strategy is available. I think it's also available online, and I'm sure we can touch base with the energy department if we want to get access to that, but it is available. I mean, some of the eThekwini competitive advantages from the very same strategy as our members indicated. We've got the freight corridors, the aviation, the King Shark ICA, the ports that have been mentioned, including the Cato Reach 1. We've got the industry sector. SAPREF was also mentioned as part of our discussion this morning, and the manufacturing. One thing that's also strong in KZN, we've got the universities sitting both as committee members in UKZN as well as DUT. So from the research and development side, we've got that as one of the advantages, and obviously the renewable is the answer that we are looking for. So there's a lot in terms of the opportunities, and the demand, as Prof also mentioned in the morning, there's the international and local demand. So the demand is there, and definitely this is a new avenue that eThekwini is driving as a province. I mean, KZN is driving as a province with eThekwini as the metro. And there's, I see there's also two hands, and maybe from our program members, please keep me honest with regards to time, and yeah, we may be excited and responding to all questions that I might have lost, how much airtime you've given us from the tea break. Please keep me honest, and you can fire me on the spot if I'm not behaving. And, but I'm sure these questions that we are receiving from the members are the reasons why we are here today. And I see there's two hands from our panel members. Let's start with our lady there, and we can go to you, Madam Mahoka first, and I think we'll take Mr. Shanga after you.
Oh, thank you, Program Director. Although my colleague hands was up, but I think ladies first. I'll take it as that. I want to address maybe the question of scarce in terms of water constraints that we have in the country. We do have technologies that are in place, and there is traction and a lot of research that is done within the space in terms of desalination plant. I know within also in TNPA, it's something that we are exploring and trying to assist in terms of purifying the water using seawater. So to just bring the question or try to answer that question as well. Thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot in that space, and water from the air as well, it's another solution. The desalination plant, obviously, there's some challenges there, but it's a solution that exists above, and underground water can be another solution as well. I think, yeah, thank you for touching on that response there. Thank you, Mr. Shanga.
Thank you very much, panel director. I think listening to the two questions, it does appear to me that we need to have an honest conversation when it comes to the whole issue of energy security. The one question speaks to exports, that if we are to drive hydrogen economy and the opportunities are on the export side, then what happens to our energy security domestically? That is how I understand the first question. But the second question speaks to South Africa as a water scarce country and the demands that are required in the hydrogen production from the water side, and how are we then addressing that issue? And I think the two questions are very valid, and it then calls for us to agree that we cannot have the one-size-fits-all solution. And as KwaZulu-Natal, I think we must appreciate the presentation by Professor Ramagopa that clearly indicated that KZN has only been identified insofar as the two nodes or the three nodes, which is the Durban, Richards Bay, and Cato Ridge. And there are no renewable energy projects. We must also accept, as KwaZulu-Natal, that we have lost out insofar as the renewable energy independent power producer program. Because when you look at bid window 1 to bid window 5, KwaZulu-Natal only has one project, the 16.5. And that project, and subject to correction, to date has not reached financial close. And that 16.5 is all that KwaZulu-Natal has insofar as renewable energy projects. So sitting here and saying, let's now pursue green hydrogen, which obviously we are looking to tap into this renewable energy project. I think for us as KwaZulu-Natal, it's a bit far-fetched, and we must wait for the opportunities that will address the issues of logistics, will address the issues of storage, the production. We all want to tap into these opportunities, but we are cognizant of the energy security challenges that we are facing as the province. Now, when we introduce the issue of gas, we are introducing a base load solution to KwaZulu-Natal. We already have long agreed that there is an energy hub vision for Richards Bay. We are quite encouraged by Transnet insofar as the processing of and bringing in the gas terminal, because this is quite important, so that we are able to aggregate gas in KwaZulu-Natal, which we can be able to do, because the aggregation of gas in Richards Bay, what it will do is to allow us to aggregate the gas price, because then you are creating a toll gate. You have imports, you create a toll gate, and it allows everyone on the other side of the toll gate to buy that gas at the same price. And we are able to bring down the cost over time because then of the economies of scale. So let's agree on that. Let's also agree that we have existing infrastructure. And this existing infrastructure is interlinked to Richards Bay and to Durban. All the way from Mozambique, you have a Romco pipeline that moves all the way to Sasol and Secunda. It links down to Richards Bay. It travels all the way past some of the picking stations like Avon, all the way to connect to Durban. We have to leverage on that infrastructure. And if we are to then talk of green hydrogen, we are saying over time, we will appreciate to explore some of the opportunities that are presented by hydrogen. However, today, we have a problem and we want to be able to resolve our problem today. And we believe that gas will be that solution. Richards Bay obviously has got the biggest coal terminal in the country. We are coal exporters. We want to continue with that and be able to at least look at issues of carbon capture. Yep. Because if we say we must stop coal production or we must reduce, I think, again, we will have a problem. But with the conversation is to say, how do we reduce our emissions? And we do understand that there is technology out there. We can be able to bring in carbon capture, bring in the incentives for capturing those carbons and be able to reduce our emissions. But the point I'm trying to make is that we need to be able to pursue baseload while we tap into these new opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all our panel members. And yes, I think we needed this debate and this discussion just to give us an overview of the work that was done behind the scene. And these hubs and the strategic benefits, I think as the members highlighted, if you look at the Durban, the Richards Bay and the Cato Ridge, there are benefits that are already highlighted within the different hubs there. And I don't think time is still on my side, but I see there's two hands. If maybe we can just quickly take the two hands, and maybe if I can ask the panel members to assist us maybe in the next 5 minutes to wrap up the discussion so that we can hand over. There's a next panel maybe that's coming just before lunch. There's a hand from one gentleman there. I think there was a second one there, and then we can close.
Thank you, Program Director. Mark Bailey from eThekwini Municipality. My question is really the dry port. Will the goods coming in and going out be accessed by railway or by road? And if by road, what are the traffic congestion implications of that? Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Mark Bailey.
Thank you for the opportunity, Program Director. For me, we have a state of disaster in terms of energy. and we are hearing good stories now about green hydrogen. So my issue is, how does it solve? I think the gentleman and the panel also mentioned this. How does it solve our security, energy security issues that we are having? How does it help us mitigate the issues that we are facing with load shedding? Because I'm hearing that we're going to be exporting it, but we're not talking about how we're going to be using it locally in terms of maybe getting generators that use green hydrogen. That's my biggest concern. Like we have this new energy that we're exploring, but how will it benefit us in terms of energy security today? Is there a way to invest in technologies that use this energy, or at the moment we're only going to be exporting it? Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we didn't get your name.
Oh, Uthando Xolo Mhlongo.
Thando
Yes,
Xolo
from
Mhlongo.
DeFi Appliances, Energy and Sustainability Engineer.
Okay, thank you, Thando Xolo Mhlongo. So these are the two questions, panel members. I think we'll wrap up with these two questions. We've got Mr. Mark Mali from eThekwini, and then Mr. Thando Xolo Mhlongo. And Mark is worried about the traffic congestion, and what is the solution then if we use the Cato Ridge dry port? How are we going to transport the commodity using that, from the port to Cato? And then the other one, Thando Xolo is worried about the current energy crisis and the issue regarding energy security. And his concern is that we are bleeding today. This hydrogen is a solution that might not address the current issue, and his concern is, what does it mean to our issues today? I think these are the two questions. Yeah, thank you. Mazibuko, you want to come in?
Thank you so much. On the ease of time, I'll take about less than 3 minutes to answer a very huge question. It's very, very important unfortunately, you can't discuss the tripod in 3 minutes, but I'll try my best. But it's crafted around the congestion to start with, of the trucks coming into the city center, the Bayhead, and also affecting and impacting negatively on the operations within the Durban port. That causes a lot of delays. If I may tell you statistics, is shocking. So it's aimed at encouraging road to rail transport. So that is a simple operation plan that the cargo will be shuttled via trains from the Durban port to Cato Ridge. Once it's fully optimal, it will run at quite a number of trains, which I won't disclose now. We'll see when we officially announce that component. But it is very, very important because it's crafted, I repeat, around the decongestion plan that is actually happening on a daily basis. Allow me, Program Director, just a second also. I think as we're discussing here or gathered here, we're talking about energy. But we are forgetting to ask why energy, as we're discussing about energy. Because you run, if there are no outputs, we'll have a problem. Again, few years down the line, we'll be told that there's more energy. We don't need energy. But what is more important is that as a country, we want to industrialize the country. And we cannot industrialize without sustainable energy. I'm talking about other projects, in particular the dry port. Why is also very, very important. Any industrialization program requires sufficient and uninterruptible energy. Like our mayor also indicated today, which is also worrying. That is also very important to exactly understand what are we trying to do. Do you want energy for the sake of energy, or do you want it to be part of the industrialization of the entire country? That is very important. Like, if we want to deal with the issue of our people across the spectrum being reduced into grass cutters, yes, you need to cut grass because there are snakes under the grass. But what are we going to do? But I'm leaving that maybe for the next engagement. But I just want to emphasize, why are we talking energy? Because in 10 years' time, if we don't know, forget about energy, it's enough, but there'll be unemployment. Thank you.
Thank you for your responses there. And unfortunately, we've got to wrap up our discussion here. I would like to take more hands, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that there's a lot before us, and as a city and also as a country, there's a lot that we need to do. There are questions that we still need to answer, but as indicated, this renewable hydrogen is catalytic for the transformation of the eThekwini energy landscape. But this is not the only solution expected today. It will be a solution mixed with other solutions that will address the concern that Utando Xolo has raised about the energy security, because hydrogen cannot really address the load shedding issues and the other load demand issues that we are aware of. But overall, I think I would like to thank our panel members for their detailed response, and also for the audience, to the audience for your questions, and I'm sure we can still have an opportunity. There are other panel discussions that we'll have throughout the day where maybe we can unpack some of these questions if we still need more answers. And please allow me to thank my panel members and thank you as the audience for your participation, and I would like to hand back to eThekwini. Yeah, I was told that if you are a chair, you can't leave the podium with no one, so. Yeah, because wherever I go, you'll be looking at me. What happened to this program director now? So I was looking to someone that I'll be handing over the program to. But if we go back to our program, I think there's just one panel discussion in one of the rooms before lunch, and yeah, that was it. And maybe eThekwini can rescue me. Let's just quickly go to the program. Oh, there are the members. Thank you. I'll hand over. Thank you.
Thank you, Shepard. Welcome all to panel 2 for the day. I'm Yusuf Raja, an environmental and sustainability consultant at Arup, and I'll be the facilitator for this session. I'd like to welcome all the delegates, including those dignitaries in the audience, all protocol observed. It is encouraging to see someone like myself, who is in the environmental field, on stage, as one of the main beneficiaries for pursuing a low-carbon economy is the receiving environment, and by extension, the associated social benefits. Now, I've learned from Shepard, previous program director, so I'd like to begin by extending a warm welcome to our learned panel, and I'm going to do this myself. This will also give us more time for picking their brains via a question and answer session later. So starting off with ladies first, Nompumelelo Tembe, who is the CEO of Itala Management Services. Itala is a female-owned and led development and integrated renewable energy company. Dr. Ismail Pulo, who is the Group CEO of the Central Energy Fund. The CEF is a state-owned diversified energy company that reports to the DMRE and most definitely a key actor in the energy space, with the mandate of contributing towards security of energy supply for South Africa and the region. Gerald Nell, who is the Managing Director of Gruner Energy. Gerald has recently returned from Nigeria with a focus on holistic life cycle project management, execution and operation, specifically around renewable gas processing, distributed energy generation, and industrial wastewater treatment. Next is Sibongiseni Kati, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Transnet Pipelines. Transnet Pipelines, as an SOE, is the custodian of the country's strategic pipeline assets related to transportation of fuels and gases, and handles almost 16 billion liters of liquid fuel and more than 450 million cubic meters of gases annually. And finally, Umzi Tuokolo, who is the Group CEO at Springlight Gas, who are suppliers of gas, including methane-rich and compressed natural gas, to industrial and commercial companies in KZN and Gauteng. Welcome to the members. The topic for this session, which is a neat segue following the discussions to date, is the strategic repurposing of the liquid fuel industry to deliver socio-economic value-add products. This is in light of the projected market demand for natural gas and hydrogen-derived products in KZN as contained within the eThekwini Regional Hydrogen Strategy. SPU and the eThekwini Energy Office has decided to strategically set up this panel discussion as the time is ripe to consider alternatives. Energy security locally, regionally, and globally is being tested in light of current global events, and liquid fuels diversification should be seriously considered as a potential alternative. To stimulate the development of natural gas and hydrogen products in the region, demand should be stimulated through government initiatives, as Prof. mentioned earlier, while private sector can play a role in investment to build infrastructure needed to balance supply and demand. For low-carbon fuels such as natural gas, hydrogen, ammonia, and synthetic fuels to work, improvements to infrastructure and transportation networks are necessary. And this extends beyond just land-based transport, but also to maritime and aviation transport as well. Now, as a reminder, the Regional Hydrogen Strategy report has indicated that hydrogen, ammonia, and synthetic fuel demand within KZN is expected to reach 500 kilotons by 2030 and expected to exceed 1,500 kilotons by 2050. In the process, requiring approximately $23 billion in investment and creating around 260,000 construction jobs and more than 11,000 permanent jobs. And as indicated by Prof. Ramagopa, this is in addition to the countrywide benefits such as PGM, mining opportunities that provide key resources in the development and operation of electrolyzers. So these projections are encouraging, and the potential is enormous, not only in terms of meeting energy security needs, but also contributing towards meeting emission reduction targets, which as an environmentalist is an important consideration to me personally. So let me kick off by posing a few questions to the panel, and thereafter we will open the floor to questions. So I'll start off with Dr. Pulo. Dr. Arup has done some work with the Danish oil refiner as well as other refineries who are embarking on a process of transitioning towards production of alternative fuels. The thinking around repurposing existing refineries and assets towards hydrogen and synthetic fuel is gaining traction. What are the Central Energy Fund's view on the potential to repurpose Durban's refineries or other assets locally for hydrogen or synthetic fuel production? And if there aren't any immediate plans, what would it take to repurpose a refinery?
Thank you very much. May I start by greeting the Executive Mayor, Professor Mukopa, councillors, all protocol observed. I think Program Director, I want to rephrase it and say it's not a question of repurpose, but rather a complementary one. Because once you speak repurposing, especially of the refining centers in the region here, you are saying if essentially we are discarding refining. Our primary source or point of departure is to say anything that we do, it cannot be without refining as the central focus. And then you can have all these other niceties around it. Then you'll be able to address what the gentleman earlier on raised about addressing the immediate needs as of now. Having said that, I would like to say that once we have that as a focus, we will then focus on these other things. But for us to play a key role in that space as the country and addressing our socio-economic challenges, we would need to put more emphasis on research and development. We need to do that. And starting point, in my view, would be to look at entities like Sanedi and then take all other initiatives that are spread throughout the country. You have entities like ESCOM, for an example, that has got a research unit. You've got DSI. Bring them under one umbrella because the specialists in this space are limited in order for us to leverage on that and get maximum output. In doing so, we will then begin to support the strong scientific community by ensuring that we have facilities and equipment to conduct high quality research that are tailored to address material conditions on the ground. A problem in South Africa is the fact that we tend to get everything from the West or US and it's imposed without addressing our own material condition. Partnership is good for as long as it addresses our needs as South Africa, first and foremost. And I think the framework is there, and the government has done excellent work. Prof, big ups to you there. When you look at it, there are tax incentives on such initiatives. It's just that private sector has not exploited that, but you find that foreign companies are actually taking advantage of that, and we continue to fund. But local companies, they kind of shy away from this, and it might be that they don't have the knowledge of how to access such. And to that extent, DSI can be invited to share more. And the other issue is that we would want to see a situation whereby South African small companies, SMMEs and the likes, are able to participate on the core industry, the main industry itself. They are not coming in as middlemen to sell some products, but they own some form of productive capabilities. And how that gets done is when we improve on research and development. You may take this point for granted, but Prof, amongst others, I think in your assessment, go back to this. We, in the past decade or so, saved the economies such as the Italian economies because their biggest investment went into renewables, for an example, and we were the major off-takers of that. We saved those. I mean, I think at some point somebody was saying as high as 92% of their investment actually went into that. If we were not there, I'm sure that economy would have collapsed. Why can't we do it for ourselves? Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I'd like to ask Mr. Kati a question. Supply chain infrastructure, including gas pipelines, could be repurposed for hydrogen and its derivatives for transportation. Has Transnet Pipelines, being the largest pipeline operator in the country, investigated the potential to support piped hydrogen and other derivatives? And what, in your opinion, might be some of the technical challenges that need to be overcome?
Thank you, Program Director, and good day, ladies and gentlemen. I think maybe it's just important to give a perspective in terms of Transnet Pipeline and what we do. We normally say we are underground business, so most people don't actually know what we do. We're basically responsible for transportation of fuel from the coast to the inland, and also responsible for transporting fuel from the inland refineries, which is Natref and Secunda, distributing it into the market. We also own the pipeline, the transport gas into KZN from Secunda via Mpangeni all the way to eThekwini, known as the Lily pipeline. So I think maybe to answer your question, I'll start from the repurposing in terms of the change. I think it has been mentioned by the mayor that the refineries that we used to know, Engen and Sapref in particular, that are in Durban have shut down, which really meant that there's been a change in the fuel supply landscape. So it means instead of now relying on a locally refined fuel, we're now doing the importation of fuel. So which means we need to repurpose our infrastructure to complement the demand that has been placed on it. So the first thing that we have to do is to make sure that there is enough facilities within the island view to be able to accommodate the importation of fuel. So part of the project that we're embarking on is to do an import terminal. But also part of the imported terminal is to actually make sure that it promotes transformation. I think most of people in the room are aware that the fuel importation part of the business is only to the oil majors because there's a lack of common user facility, particularly on the island view. So that's part of the transformation that we are working on as Transnet Pipeline in terms of infrastructure. The second thing that we have experienced over the years in terms of the current infrastructure has been an attack on our infrastructure. We have had a fuel theft incident, which probably in the past 4 years started. So part of the critical things that we ought to do is to make sure that infrastructure is protected to ensure that there is a security of supply. But I think also as we transition to the new energies, it's important to make sure that the communities are safe. And part of the work that we need to do, and with the assistance of the eThekwini in particular, is to deal with the settlements that are on top of our pipeline. If we talk about handling gas, handling hydrogen, if there is a leak on those pipelines, it can be catastrophic. So that's the first part, is just to make sure that we've got enough facilities to meet the demands as it comes from the shutdown of the refineries. The second bit is then to move to transition to natural gas. I think that's been discussed, and Richards Bay, it's the port that has been earmarked, and then there's work in Kucha, and then also I think Saldanha. We also want to be part of that. So, but obviously key to us is the link to our Lily pipeline, to make sure that now, to address the issues of security of supply to gas, we can repurpose that pipeline and run it in reverse. Instead of bringing gas from Secunda all the way to eThekwini, we're looking at now bringing gas now from the Richards Bay to the Lily pipeline, up into the inland, and then down to Ethekwini. Automatically, by doing that, you increase the capacity on the line, because the part that you were transporting from Secunda to eThekwini, you're going to split it in that. So that's part of the work that we are actually working hard to do. Then obviously, then the third step is then to say, how do we then look at the current infrastructure, repurposing it for the future, which will be hydrogen. The challenge with that is, how do you transition? Because unlike the different types of fuel, like synthetic, you can put it with the current fuel and then be able to deal with it. But as soon as you move to a gas, it becomes a whole different kettle of fish where you need to have a proper strategy. Say, when do you transition? Because you cannot use the same pipeline for gas and then the same pipeline for the liquid fuel. So that's the work that we're actually working on, to say, how does that landscape is going to look like? I would like to stop the program. Director, thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Gerald a question, and this follows on from what Dr. Poulos was mentioning in his opening remarks. An important ingredient in successfully transitioning towards hydrogen includes human capital and investment in skills development as much as it requires infrastructure investment. With your experience across Africa, do you see this as a constraint to progress or an opportunity for the current skilled refinery workforce?
Skills development. if we look at our youth today, the young professionals, I think the ones with skills development requirements is people my age. The youth are extremely bright. But when we look at the oil and gas sector and the hydrogens, we need to look a little bit further on what skills development is actually required. Is it just engineering? Is it just technical? So in manufacturing fuels or energies, there's a lot of aspects involved with it. And it goes along a lot of social spheres. And it involves anyone or any product that can be turned into energy. We're looking at the agricultural environment with biomass, municipal waste, waste to energy. So all these people are playing a role in our energy future, and also the sustainability of their own communities where they operate in. So I would rather say that instead of looking at skills development, let's look at it at a skills exchange between countries, between technology partners. Gruner as a company has an exchange program that we're putting in place where any OEM that wants to supply any product needs to take part of our people to their country and send a group back to our country. So we learn what they are doing and they learn what we are doing. Technology keeps on improving all the time. So you need to be updated with it. And your people need to grow with it as well.
Thank you for that, Gerald. I think this is a good way to bring in Mama Nompulelo. I understand that your team are looking at aspects of the circular economy, which is a key theme of the hydrogen roadmap, and specifically the use of municipal solid waste as the precursor in hydrogen production. Can you share more about this, including the economic value add a project like this would bring?
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Thank you very much for the opportunity. Unfortunately, Ubaba Umeo Sapumile, and my comments also are very much directed to him. I wish he was here, and I hope Osbu are there to relay the messages. Mine is very simple and straightforward. For any product to be developed, there must be feedstock. Without feedstock, then there is no, the manufacturing aspect is not there. For instance, in our case, as the manufacturers of the production of green electricity as well as green hydrogen, we need biomass. It could be biomass from sugarcane or from sweet sorghum. After having juiced out, then we are left with bagasse. Then from that, we then produce green electricity. We also can produce green electricity as well as hydrogen from the use of municipality solid waste. And without that, then there is no product at the end of the day. Unfortunately, fortunately, our municipality, eThekwini, has got lots of that, lots of solid waste, but we just need access to that. We take the solid waste, then we produce it through the technology of gasification, and then we get either electricity or green hydrogen up to ammonia. So the process is very simple, as long as there is technology and which we have that is quite reliable. However, without the security of that feedstock from the municipality, we're unable to do the production of both electricity and hydrogen. And it's been about 2 years that we've been trying to knock at the municipality's door to get them to agree to give us the feedstock for us to be able to produce green hydrogen as well as green electricity. I was pleased to hear this morning that Ubaba Umeya says they were in ICU, and probably that is why it was a bit, yes. hopefully now that they've transitioned to high care, to a ward, we then probably will be able to get offtake agreements on municipal solid waste. We see that as a win-win situation because we'll be able to produce green electricity as well as hydrogen, whilst the municipality will have those, their sites, the landfills will then be freed. Then the waste will be taken to our site where we'll then be generating electricity and hydrogen, helping our community. So it is indeed a win-win situation. As Uprof said earlier in this morning, that in the hydrogen space, price has not really been determined. In our case, it has not been determined because we do not know how we're going to get the feedstock from the municipality. Will it be free? How much will we be paying, if we'll be paying it at all? The transportation costs. So all those things have not been put in place. As such, our financial model still needs to plug in those figures for us to know the price. Without that, then we can't. Whilst we're still waiting to be in the ward or to be able to walk, the opportunities go by. So it is important that we jump at the opportunities and get the feedstocks as soon as possible and determine the prices for us to be able to start to be productive, and job opportunities will be there. The demand is there, as it was alluded in the morning. Globally, there is that demand, and they are knocking at our doors. However, we still have got these teething problems, which I believe now they'll be solved for us to be able to go forward. Another critical issue in terms of our support, you also tailed that in your question. Allow me to include it now. Yesterday, it was discussed at a great length, the issue of environment impact assessments. Whilst it is important, the speed is very, very important. Our project, for instance, has been retarded for now 4 years because of EIAs. It was taken to national because when they weighed the project, they believed it must be dealt with at a national level. So we're communicating with our consultant on environmental impact studies, was communicating with the national office. After about 2.5 years, we were told that no, actually your project belongs to the province. So it has to go back to the province. And when it goes back to the province, everything must start afresh. So now the extent is now taking, it's not even 2.5 years now, it's going to about 4 years, again, retarding the progress. I think that is kind of support that we need. We need the speed in making decision, in giving the project the feedstock that they need for us to be able to produce electricity as well as hydrogen. We also need support in terms of the decision making on issues of critical importance like ASEA. We're not saying EIAs must not be done, but if it can be quickened, the speed is needed for projects like this.
Thank you, Ma. I think the eThekwini people are taking notes, and I know some of my friends from ET are here as well, so they can also be taking some notes. The question to Imzi is, considering that hydrogen is a building block for other fuels, and in light of the work that you do, what opportunities and demand do you see in the markets you operate within for ammonia and synthetic fuels once they become available?
I must say I didn't get most of, well, the first part of your question. But I think I want to start in scoping market opportunities by effectively doing something unorthodox. I'm a resident of Durban, and the Honorable Mayor has been doing a sterling job in cleaning our city. And I want to express my personal gratitude, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having me. And thanks for having me on the panel, and I hope I'll add the value you seek. But let's start by reminding everybody in the room that today we sit here because we have an energy security problem not an energy transition problem. So despite the need to have these conversations that introduce hydrogen and the rest of the products that come out of that, we need to first secure our energy security. Now, we can do that if we enable, firstly, the developmental projects that needs to happen in order for us to actually have energy security. And that is always, always going to be built on the back of a well-established demand side, because that's what actually enables investments. And so in saying that, I also speak from the natural gas market, but with a very clear understanding that that market in itself not only needs to be secure, but it needs to grow, but ultimately transition to a cleaner version of itself. So we can talk about green hydrogen, and I think Prof put it very aptly when he was given the color codes that are given to hydrogen, from brown to etc. But so primarily for us to even talk of the existence and the coming to scale, I would say, of a hydrogen economy within the country, we need to secure where that hydrogen is going to come from. And natural gas, which is the market that we're in, is a very viable source of hydrogen in the future. Certainly not green hydrogen, but certainly a different version thereof. But then the question becomes, how do you speak of a hydrogen market without having due consideration with a few things that create a market? One is demand. Two is the cost of that product. Three is the impact of that product as an input to what whoever is your customer is doing with that product. So where I'm sitting is we need to create an environment first of a South African economy that's tolerant of the cost of a hydrogen-driven economy. And I don't think we're there yet. That's a couple of decades, in my opinion, before we get there. And you guys will hear, I'm not sitting here promoting gas. We can read between the lines. And once we've established that, is, again, will there be economies of scale to create a meaningful participation of any product for that matter? Which is why I always sit here and I say, I like being in a room that discusses hydrogen. I like being in a room that discusses renewable energy. I like being in a room that discusses coal, for that matter. Because once we understand that energy is the key that unlocks the financial and economic and social prosperity South Africa needs, not requires, we need it. And we need energy reliably and cheaply. That creates an environment for me when I'm in the room to say, we can't come here and fight about the little cupcake that I own, that is gas. But I certainly want to be part of a conversation that says, let's build a bigger cake, and gas becomes a part of that. And I think as South Africans, and eThekwini residents in particular, we need to start engaging at that level, where we're coming together to solve the one problem, which is energy security, and then taking that into the next conversations of how do we transition the industries that are driven by that energy security to serving the greater purpose of climate change and. I just wanted to leave it at principle level. I hope I've done some justice to your question.
Yes. Thank you, Mzi. Thank you for that. I think the key takeaway is that, the business of business is business. And I think that's one of the key messages that you're conveying there. We'll now open the floor to questions. There are roving mics going around. Please may I ask that you state your name and who you represent when posing your question. And if there's a specific panel member, please indicate that as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity. First question.
Sorry, your name?
Sorry, my name is Mukumalo from Election. The first question that I'd like to pose to the municipality is with regards to the access to seawater. Is there any legislation or any red tape around the use of seawater for the electrolysis purposes? And my other question was regarding price, and Mr. Mzee has just touched base with that. Currently in South Africa, a kilogram of hydrogen, gray hydrogen that is about 1,000 rand. And Japan is looking for blue hydrogen at about 62 rands. And the rest of the world, in particular the US and the EU, is looking at $2 per kilogram. And now how do we bridge that gap? Because 1,000 rand to 62 rands to $2, it doesn't add up for me. So those are the three questions that I'd like to pose to the panel, but in particular with the access to seawater for the electrolysis.
Thank you. Can we take another question and then we'll let the panel answer?
Sanbonan, my name is Tlati Zakele Madela. I work for a private company, but I'm speaking on behalf of South African Energy Forum. I would like to speak to you people from the bottom of my heart, not just necessarily you, but all the stakeholders in the oil and gas industry in the country, including those ones that are not here, the government, the Central Energy Fund, the DMRE, the National Treasurer, the President himself. I want to turn around and look at these people. I look like them, I cannot change them. This is who we are. And we don't all live in this place. We live all around the country. So my question to you, all of you stakeholders, I'm going to use the example of engine that you are now repurposing into a terminal in my country, South Africa, while we are importing petrol and diesel and jet. And now you take the entire refinery, you convert it into a terminal. So please allow me to ask the question on behalf of South Africans. Why could it not be bought by Petro SA so that we have a national pride to go around the country and see Petro SA outlets, 2,600 of them here in South Africa and 1,300 of them in the SADC region. But we must go and buy the very same refined product that come from overseas, delivered here at this terminal that you are repurposing a refinery of. And I must take my money and go buy from Vivo Petroleum, from Britain. Our parents told us that Britain colonized us. So who's colonizing us today again? So I want to ask you people, why is it so difficult to live in this country? That I am 50 years old. I've been attending conferences like this, hoping that one day I'll take something home. I come from Zululand. There is no industries there, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Can we have you people open up an opportunity for the biofuels industry in this very same oil and gas terminal? Speak to the leadership of KZN and speak to the leadership of Durban. Just open it up for us so that we can have off-take agreements and go and build the biofuels industry where we are. Because I do not come from Durban. The question then that I want to ask as a last question, who is dropping the ball in this country? Who continues to drop the ball in this country? I survive from private sector. I have never worked for the government. But here I am asking, why is our government absent? Why is our government officials absent? Who continues to drop the ball in this country? Because we are a colonized economy. Look at yourself. There's only one white man amongst you. But you speak with a very apologetic voice, including our leadership in the country. I'm lashing at you guys. Tell me when I get out of here, I can say to Ingonyama Trust, show us the land. We're going to build the biofuels industry. We're going to dump it into the engine repurpose terminal. And when we go to SAPREF, I want to ask the question, how are the South African banks going to be part of the underwriting of the money that is going to transact the engine deal that is going to Vivo from the UK, when the very same bank are refusing to build a refinery in Richards Bay, when the Saudis are prepared to build the refinery in Richards Bay? On one hand, they refuse to finance a refinery in Richards Bay because that is going to be built together with the government. On another hand, they are willing to transact with Vivo. It's still oil and gas industry. Why is the answer no when it is our government, and it's yes when it is private sector? Thank you.
Just to summarize the two questions that came in, the first from the gentleman at the back, one was speaking around desalination. The second was looking at economies of scale. And to summarize what the gentleman in the front asked, I think it's more around local beneficiation. I think that's what the summary of that was. Mr. Paul, I don't know if you want to take the beneficiation question first, and then we'll see who will pick up the others.
Yeah, Baba, yashisa le mbuzo yakho. I normally say, you know, sometimes I avoid these forums because I was not trained in diplomacy. And often than not, if I speak like a plus jappy that I am, I get into trouble. But nonetheless, one, I would like to say that as the Central Energy Fund, and indeed under the leadership of our department, our ultimate shareholder, DMRE, we want to retain and we will retain refining capacity in the country where we have control. And I want to say, for an example, you would know that we are resuscitating our refining capacity in Mossel Bay, Petrus A. We are looking for partners there so that we can even make it bigger where possible. Coming to specifically with your question on why Petrus A did not make an offer for engine. To be honest with you, if we had an opportunity, we would have done so, but we were excluded in the process for one reason or the other, because we did not even know of that inquiry, so to speak. So you would know how private transactions continue in the country. It's sometimes the prerogative of the transaction advisors as to who they invite and who they don't. We were not invited. If we were going to make an offer, that's for sure. That's one. Because our policy position is that we want South African refining capacity. You know, there's something that some international consultants were trying to mislead us with, Prof, and we rejected such advice, where they were saying, no, the world is over-refined. We don't need refining. We said it's true, but South Africa is not. South Africa needs, you have smaller economies that are building refineries and targeting us as the market. So we'll be very stupid not to ensure that we protect our own refining capacity. And that's why we are fighting and making every other offer in as far as refining is concerned, where we are invited, of course, and where we can. For an example, the SAPRAF deal, we have made an offer. We're waiting for the sellers to tell us their position. We have made our offer, and we are pushing for that, because by now, if it was our own, in our own control, we would have finalized that deal. You know, we are pushing very hard. But at the end of the day, if the sellers would come back to us and say, no, we are not selling anymore, Popeye, what can we do? But we've been pushing, and we are pushing. We want to buy it. We are ready to buy SAPREF, to preserve the jobs, and to ensure that, for us, these are strategic industries. It's not about only the refining, it's what they support, the related industry, i.e. your plastic industries, the support of your heavy industries through the availability of heavy fuel oil, HFO. The issue of developmental agenda in terms of roads, by ensuring that we have an economically available, competitive bitumen, for an example. These are the things that are going to be more expensive if we don't have refining capacity. So we are very serious about having this thing. And we've been making offers. Whatever, when NATREV comes in, we will be there to say we want to buy it as the South African government. But there are this market dynamics where sometimes we don't have control in terms of our constitution, as it were. But where we can, we are pushing and we are making offers. Like I can boldly say that as these offers come to us, to say that we are selling, are you interested? We always make that commitment to say we want it because we want to retain refining capacity.
Baba, can you answer the specific question from the gentleman about Zululand? I know you want, about the refining capacity potentially in Richards Bay.
I beg your pardon?
Richards Bay.
Richards Bay. Richards Bay, another initiative where we are very serious about it. No, wait, I'm explaining. No, I'm explaining. Give me a chance. As early as last month or so, our minister took us to Saudi Arabia to say, where are we with this project? It's not us. If those that we are partnering with are delaying it, what is it that we can only pursue and motivate for that to say, we need this. And that's the case we are making. In fact, I was with the development zone, Ubabu Zulu is here, just now to say, let's go back to Saudi Arabia and tell them that the timelines are not on our side. We need this refinery. And those are our key partners. Those are the ones that who said we will invest. So we've got to make sure that they come on board. We as a South African government, we are ready. Biofuels, there are initiatives on that, as you would know, and
Baba, I think we need to move on. I think there's quite a few other hands out there. The second question was the low cost of LCOE for hydrogen, and how do we bring that down? I don't know if anybody on this panel would like to take a stab at that. And the diesel question.
Thank you. The issue of pricing is really a very sensitive one. Indeed, when you look at $2 versus the 65 or 68 rands, is quite vast. In my talk earlier, I did mention that it is a critical issue that still needs to be discussed and verified. We cannot determine the price if we do not know what would be the production costs. So those costs need to be determined first and be confirmed before we can know the price of hydrogen. There are quite a number of factors that need to be determined for us to know the exact price. And I did mention the price of feedstock should be discussed, and the price of transportation of feedstock to a specific site, actually Island View, that's where we'll be operating. We're fortunate enough to be invited by Engen to say, let's come and occupy some space on their premises. So there are quite a number of variables that need to be taken into account before the pricing of hydrogen can be confirmed. But I do agree that there's quite a big gap, but we are hoping at the right time the prices will go down as they normally do, and will then be able to compete on par. Also, let's also be aware that for now it will be most export rather than locally. So it should work out at the moment. But going forward, there are quite a number of determinants that needs to be considered. At the moment, it's still expensive. I do agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you. There were still quite a few hands. We are running out of time. We can take two quick questions. May I ask you to keep your questions brief so we can get quick answers from the audience? And we are going to go on a break thereafter, so you're welcome to ask the audience members your questions thereafter as well. We've got the roving mics out.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. My name is Prince Lee Tatalingeb, representing two organizations, Mhlaba Mucha Geotech and Environmental, and Umnoto Ebantwini Movement. Just a question and actually a comment. My question is directed to Usis Mpumelelo, particularly on circular economy. You mentioned something about the feedstock, and I think waste was your key principle around it. Looking at the waste being more economically driven in terms of the usage of, based on the usage of residents, such as eThekwini, do you have another alternative based on the volumes that you would require if you don't reach those volumes? I know you're still in discussion with the municipality on that. The comment has to do with the EIAs. I think there was a lot of applause around the EIA process. I think the president did mention it in the recent mining in Daba, that there's, I think it's Operation Vulindlela, where they've now put time frames, the EIAs, to about 6 months. So that's just something one needs to look at as we engage the various municipal departments and the national. Thank you.
Thank you. And with the next question?
Sorry, excuse me. I didn't quite get his
First question was around the circular economy, and the second was a comment about the reduced timeframes on the EIA.
Do you have an alternative? You mentioned waste as your feedstock. If you don't get the volumes on waste, do you have an alternative of another feedstock?
Okay, thank you. We did a study with the eThekwini Municipality solid waste. We are supported by the Science and Technology up in KZN, UKZN. In that study, one, it was determined that the quality of the solid waste in eThekwini is suitable to feed our plant through gasification process. That is one. Number two, in terms of the quantities, the tonnage of solid waste available at eThekwini far exceeds our starting point. So we do not envisage a situation whereby we'll run short of feedstock, particularly from eThekwini Municipality. Our demand at the moment, our need at the moment is too minute, yet their volumes are so huge, it's unreal. So probably will be, if they give that feedstock to us, it will take us years before we increase our capacity to that particular level.
Thank you. Can we just take one last question, please?
Sanibona. Bongani Mthembu lo khulumayo. Ngizocela ukusho lokhu ukuthi sise KZN.
Sorry, can you stand up, please? I'm not sure where the question is coming from.
Qhamuka I question. Ngizocela ukusho lokhu ukuthi okubalekile. Mhlambe kuzofanele ngime angibanqeni abantu. Okubaleka kakhulu if I seek understand ukuthi isiZulu sibalekile se KZN. Lento yokuthi kuzolokukhulunywa ngolimi lokubolekwa size siqede la ayifunakali yona. Number 2. Kunabantu abangayizwa yonke lento ekhulunywa la. Kukhulunywa ngeimpilo zabo. Ukwakhuluma ubaba usacolonize, sho namanje sakuvumela ukuthi sicolonize ngolimi esilikhuluma la eKZN eThekwini. Okunye okubaleka kakhulu la sengibuyela einkulumeni ezike zakhulunywa la ukuthi soyicela lento le ekade ikhulunywa la ichazwe ngesiZulu. Yonke lento ikhulunywa namhlanje ngoba izolo ayikho into eyade ichazwa ngolimi lethu. Kunomama nobaba la abazi ulimi lesiZulu, ulimi lethu esalinqele ebeleni. Mase ngiphinde ngithi ukudlula kancane ngithi mhlonishwa lapha esandleni sami sokudla wabonga umeya weTheku ngokuba clean kweTheku. Lokho ku questionable baba. Sinomgaqo ovalwa amaChina la ngenxa yebhilidi elasha angazi muphi umnyaka nanamanje savaliwe lo mgwaqo. Si inconvenience wamaChina ezweni lethu. Kungabe kwaphuma idirective ukuthi ifanele la bhilidi lishawe phansi lapha ezantsi. Ngibuye ngize kulokho kuhlanganise namhlanje. Mawami Ngiyakuthanda lapho phambili ayikho into abaningi bahlonipha njengabantu besifazana abadala. Lento ikhulumayo ye green energy ngizocela siyilungise ngoba khona lento ekuthiwa imyth. Angazi ngizoyihumusha kanjani ngolimi lethu lesiZulu.
Can we make it a bit quicker, please?
Yabona mase ngikhuluma isiZulu uzongilinda. Nimtranslateele futhi ngoba manje uthi angisheshe ngoba ngikhuluma ulimi lami. Angiyifuni leyo nto. La ma uthi i-green energy ngiyalongizwa nje i-green hydrogen. Ngizocela ma ukuthi mesithi green mina ngokwami ukwazi into esithi green kufana njengerobot emgwaqeni kumele uready umuntu kahle akwazi ukwenza njani akwazi ukucrossa but kumele ithi hlaza uyacrossa. Nalana ngicela ukuthi muthi green shuthi asikhulumi ngento enama stack oshemula ezokhipha ini umoya ozokwenza njani ozolimaza ini ihealth yabantu. Ngesikhathi sobandlululo ngesikhathi apartheid abelungu oyindlebe ikhanyilanga babe prioritize ama birds and bees. Kwakuyiyo izona izinto ezaziphambili ihealth yabantu inhlala yabantu ingemuva. Manje akusasebenzi kanjalo. Ama birds and bees manje alandela ngemuva. Okubalekile inhlala yabantu.
Sorry, I'm going to have to rush you to get to a question, please, because we're running out of time.
Ngizokwenza umzekelo. Awubuka abantu abahlala eMkhomazi komagabheni eMia Bank eWentworth. Khona usaphi sakhe eMkhomazi. Khona lezi engine osapref. Umeya uke wakhuluma kamnandi laphana encoma lezi imboni bezikhona engine osapref. Okubi kunawo konke fanele sibuye understand ama health implications enziwe izona lezi imboni the time operate. Sinabantu abano cancer no asthma. Uma wami ongizalayo une asthma ngana asikhulumi ngento generational cha yaqala ngima wami mekubhekwa ihistory cha akekho kwaba nayo ngenxa yani yokuexpose yakula chemicals alezi imboni. Yebo bayayigenerate economy bayibanga imisebenzi bayenza imisebenzi but sibuke futhi nani nama health implications abangwa izona lezi imboni. Mesikhuluma ngabo green hydrogen asibuke ukuthi ke ngampela igreen ngampela yini kungabi ukuthi sithi green kanti ayikho green. Ngicela ukuma lapha.
Thank you.
Ngicela ukusukuma. Asiqale ngixolisele abantu aba-organize lo mhlangano ukuthi mhlambe kungabikho umuntu ozohumusha. Ngizokhuluma ngibonge mfowethu ngani yami ukhuluma ngendlela okhulume ngayo. Uqinisile ziyadinga ukukhunyushwa izinto eziningi. Siyabonga ngokuphawula lokho. Angikhulumele ke lento okhuluma ngayo ka green. Ngempela ugreen esikhulumayo asisho lo mbala oluhlaza. Masikhuluma ngogreen sisho ubuhlaza lobo bokuthi indlela esizokhiqiza ngayo sizokhiqiza ngendlela yokuthi abantu bangabi nezifo. Njengoba kade ushilo uthi kudala indlela okukhiqiza ngayo kwakubakhona oshemula ababekhipha intuthu. Le ntuthu igcine isikhathaze abantu ezifubeni. I-technology yethu indlela angazi technology ngizothi yini ngesizulu kodwa ubuchwepheshe ngiyabonga ubuchwepheshe esobusebenzisa kule mboni yethu ubuchwepheshe obubizwa ukuthi gasification. Lebo buchwepheshe benza ukuthi kungabi khona intuthu ezoya in the ozone kwi-environment izoya phezulu iphinde ibuye ihogelwe ibisihlupha abantu ezifubeni zabo nanoma ngabo yiphi na indlela. So lapho ngicela ukuqinisekisa ukuthi lo buchwepheshe sobusebenzisa ubuchwepheshe obungeke budle amanzi amaningi abukho technology is not thirsty so angeke budle amanzi amaningi so ngeke kuzobe negative impact kuhlukumeze abantu ngendlela yamanzi ngeke futhi bahogele izishunqane ezophinde zibakhathaza. Ingakho sachuza sakhetha ukusebenzisa le technology esoyisebenzisa ngakho ngale nto okhuluma ngayo ngalo mzuzu. Esibili thini konje umbuzo? I think it's been covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think our time is up. I think there's a lot of passion in the room. From the mayor, no, if the mayor needs to speak.
Siyabonga kakhulu. Thank you, Program Director. Ngiyajabula ukuthi uma nathi sifuna ukuthi likhulu ilimi lethu kodwa khona sibuye sikurecognize ukuthi khona singakwazi ukusho ngesizulu. Kufanele sifunde kahle sonke. Bengifisa nje uqala ngokuxolisa ukuthi uma uorganizer iconference kuba khona ama cost owa incurrishayo, kuba khona indleko obanazo. Okusho ukuthi asixolise ukuthi kulezo indleko azange sigcizelele ukuthi sifanele sihumushe ukwazi ukutranslatewa kakhulukazi ukwenza ukuthi sonke sihambe ndawonye. Iphutha lelo siyalemukela, siyaxolisa. Okwesibili udaba lwama-China umfowethu akhala ngalo udaba esilisukumele kakhulu njengomkhandlu. Siyasizwa ke isikhala ukuthi sengathi asifuni ukulibhidliza ibhilidi. Kunemqathango elandelwayo awumane usuka nje uyobhidliza ibhilidi lomuntu. Kunemqathango aseyinkantolo, kudaba liseyinkantolo silinde ethi inkantolo ikhiphe isinqumo sesingaluwisa. And manje ke inkantolo asinawo amandla ukuthi zigijima ngespeed esingakanani zona. Thina njengomasipala siredi singalwisa noma yinini. Mayithi nje inkantolo hayi sengasuka kusasa singalithela phansi kusasa. Kwahlehle nathi njengamakhansela aseThekwini sikhathazekile fanele bekade selwile. Manje kasinayo icontrol einkantolo ukuthi zigijima ngejubane elingakanani inkantolo. So ke siyakuthatha ke lokho kodwa futhi nodaba indlela elingene ngayo umfowethu mayethu uncoma ukuthi seliyahlanzeka idolobha sikaqedi ukuhlanza. Sisendleleni ukuthi silihlanze sisekahle. Sisendleleni ukuhlanza sisakahle. Kodwa kuyasikhuthaza nathi njengamakhansela ukuzwa kuthiwa siyakubona khona enikwenzayo. Ngoba njengemeya yenu ku Facebook ama insult engathola every minute. Athi nje siyahluleka ukuliclean, so at least ukhona ethi uqhamuka ngathi niyazama kodwa ningaqedi. And silapho kulo ndlela and it is a collective responsibility. Siyabonga.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. There's a lot of energy and passion in the room, which is good. We need to have some robust discussions around these topics. You'll be happy to know that the next item on the agenda is lunch, and you can visit the exhibitors outside. Thank you, everybody. That will be all.
Kahleni bo, ngiyanicela. I beg you all before you leave. The lunch is through those doors, and please, so that we can cover the time that we have lost.